Well, the US Senate is allowing an arms deal with Saudi Arabia to go ahead despite warnings from human rights groups like Amnesty International and even senior politicians. The Republican Senator Rand Paul calls it a recipe for disaster and an escalation of the ongoing arms race in the region. Here's what you need to know about the deal. Well, the Pentagon announced earlier this month that the US State Department had approved the potential sale of more than $1 billion worth of arms for Saudi Arabia. General Dynamics Corporation, which has been awarded the contract, is expected to deliver around 130 Abrams battle tanks, as well as other armored vehicles and military equipment. Cross-party opposition to the deal criticizes Saudi Arabia's role in Yemen's 18-month war. And it warns that more weapons could fuel an arms race in the region. Well, let's go to our editor-at-large now, Craig Kapitas, who is in Paris. Craig, just touching on that Amnesty International report, it notes that US-made bombs were used by Saudi Arabia on a hospital in Yemen, and they want the arms sales halted. So how comes this deal was allowed to go ahead despite these warnings and despite opposition, even from US senators?
Matthew, this is a case of realpolitik versus aspirational politik. Now, what Amnesty International does is exceptionally important work and illuminating work and needs to be recognized. But in the world of realpolitik in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia is a reliable ally. And in fact, it's probably as reliable, if not more so, than any other ally in the Middle East. So this deal was made because there's a conflict going on, and the conflict is specifically between Saudi Arabia and Iran. It's happening, whether one likes it or not.
Well, let's just pick up on that conflict, which pitches the two regional rivals against each other, Iran and Saudi Arabia. America has made great strides towards opening up Iran over the past few years. Which of these markets is more important as a business partner, Iran or Saudi Arabia?
Depends what side of the coin you're on and how much money you're making, Matthew. The reality, again, in realpolitik, America needs to juggle both deals with Iran and deals with Saudi. Now, the new deal that the Senate approved with Iran now allows the sale of Airbuses and Boeings to the Iranians. Now, there's a clause in that contract that states that these planes can only be used for commercial passenger purposes. But clearly, the Saudis don't believe that's the case. They're going to be used to transport equipment and military personnel. So the Saudis don't like that deal just as much as the Iranians don't like the General Dynamics deal. And the whole thing comes down to this as far as amnesty and concerned politicians in America. The Saudi military does not deploy with a platoon of human rights lawyers with each division.
Craig,
it doesn't work that way.
I want to get into the main defense contractor benefiting from this deal, General Dynamics, okay? It has been funding some of the senators that supported the deal going through. Tell us more about that.
Well, it's our gambling in Casablanca moment. Shocking. General Dynamics over the past year has contributed, a little over $1 million to both Republican and Democratic senatorial campaigns. In fiscal 2015, they spent $7 million on lobbying in Washington, D.C. And as you rightly say, there's a revolving door between the military-industrial complex and the people who vote on these issues in the Senate. So there's nothing new here.
Okay, Craig Kapitas in Paris, thank you very much for that.